Ora bem, cá estamos novamente. Vamos continuar o tema do outro dia sobre o que é que a Navidas resolveu fazer. Intitulou Novo DLSS 5.0, só que levou um descasque monumental na internet, ainda bem, ainda bem. Eu apontei alguns, mas eu vou mostrar aqui o que eu fiz no outro dia, aqui só para mostrar que eu não sou pau mandado deles, apesar de ter uma Nvidia. Ok? Portanto, eu fiz aqui o vídeo, já estão publicados, ok? Hoje, como veem, vão aparecer aqui mais dois, certo? Não devem ficar publicados amanhã, eu vou esperar. E num desses vídeos eu falei lá de um canal que estava a passar lustro a estes gajos. Porque vai haver sempre, não é? Porque a Nvidia patrocina muita gente, é óbvio. Só que eu disse logo quem era o gajo. E é um canal até bastante grande, certo? E com muita tradição. Então, o que é que o nosso amigo CEO veio dizer? Veio correr logo dizer. O Jensen diz que os jogadores estão completamente errados. Nós, que usamos a tecnologia, estamos completamente errados. A inteligência artificial deles é que está bem. Como já se tem provado que a inteligência artificial tem metido os panados forte e feio. Então no chat de GPT, puxa, esqueçam lá isso. Sobre o DLSS5, se a da NVIDIA responde à reação negativa ao DLSS, acho que vai aumentar esse problema. Ok? O senhor diz que o controle artístico permanece com os desenvolvedores. Está bonito. E mais, esquecem-se depois de dizer que estas alterações que estão a ser feitas são duas 5090 ligadas entre si para fazer essa renderização. Duas 5090. Pessoalmente, nós nem sequer podemos ter duas gráficas ligadas, neste caso, sendo da NVIDIA, em SLI. Ok? Já terminou há muito tempo isso. Eles têm servidores que permitem fazer isso. Portanto, começa logo por aí. Depois, duas 5090, que é que toda a gente tem 5090, não é? E depois tem mais outra para ligar. Depois, em uma sessão de perguntas e respostas à imprensa, a hardware tão, em termos e condições gerais, 2026, o CEO da Nvidia Jensen minimizou as críticas da LE5, o novo uso de inteligência artificial e a renderização neural pela empresa de periferias. O vídeo que está, o Hardware Unbox vai mostrar até bastante, é surreal. Parece que o gajo andou a fumar aquilo que faz rir, ok? E põe-se para ali a falar, a falar, a falar, a falar. Aliás, eu acho que nos últimos eventos que este gajo tem feito, normalmente é isso que tem. E depois manda aquelas bocas para ver se a malta se ri e aí é uma vergonha. Desde a estreia do recurso, alguns críticos reclamaram abertamente nas redes sociais que a tecnologia está fazendo os jogos parecerem piores, homogéneos ou mostrarem apenas uma visão do mundo da Nvidia. Muitas das críticas se concentraram nas aparências de atualizações. Para mim, o mais grave é que já houve um assemblador que é partner da Nvidia que já veio criticar a Nvidia porque a Nvidia não está a fornecer as gráficas supostamente de 2026. Começa a jogar por aí. Estão é preocupados em andar a renderizar a fronha dos artistas. É isso aí que eles estão preocupados. Bem, em primeiro lugar, eles estão completamente errados, disse alguém em resposta a uma pergunta do hardware do Tão, editor-chefe, sobre as críticas. Não, nós estamos completamente errados. Quem está certo é a Nvidia. Okay? Tanto estão certos como esqueceram-se nos drivers do lançamento da série 50, esqueceram-se de colocar o CUDA. Okay? E depois, neste último evento, este gajo CEO veio dizer: Não, nós é que criamos o CUDA. E se não fosse o CUDA, não havia inteligência artificial. E agora, para as tais 5090 funcionarem, foi usado o quê? Pá. A razão para isso é porque, como expliquei em muito cuidado, o DLSS 5 funda a controlabilidade da geometria das texturas e tudo sobre o jogo com IA generativa. Pois o problema vai ser isso. Tu, neste momento precisas de duas gráficas e sai uma cagada e só mostram quase tudo parado, ok? Quero ver como é que isso vai ser na realidade connosco. que sistema é que vai usar o DLSS 5. Ok? Ele acrescentou que os desenvolvedores ainda podem ajustar a inteligência artificial generativa para que ela corresponda ao seu estilo, acrescentando que adiciona a capacidade. É tudo conversa. Vamos passar para o vídeo do Hardware Unbox. Aliás, Gamers Nexus. Ok? Sigam o canal dele também, vejam o vídeo. The video says you are completely wrong about. Ok? Vamos pôr aqui legendas, talvez, porque a malta com. Eu vou falando sempre também, não é? Olha, se a inteligência artificial dos sistemas funcionasse como deve ser e a tradução fosse decente, ok? Em vez de andar a fazer fotografias de senhoras com problemas de. Eu já nem vou dizer que é para não ser cancelado também. Aliás, eles já disseram há muito tempo. E vamos ver aqui, nosso amigo.
Neural rendering, the fusion of
A conversa que este gajo está a ter para tentar explicar a porcaria do DLSS.
graphics and artificial intelligence. This
Jesus.
DLSS5, take a look at it.
A internet não perdoa. A internet não perdoa.
Its love for global surveillance and military industrial company Palantir with tasteful heart emojis, NVIDIA today announced DLSS 5. That stands for Deep Learned Super Slop 5. DLSS 5 takes the revolutionary approach of applying a custom-tuned, deep-learned, fully trained, advanced 2019 Instagram selfie filter to video games to ensure characters are always shown under 5500K studio lights even when fighting zombies in dark alleys, including full lip filler, lipstick, makeup that the artist forgot to apply when the character left the house, and NVIDIA even debuted its new DLSS model PT, which stands for Peter Thiel, that applies a realistic reptilian eye effect to NPCs. The entire internet memed on DLSS 5.
Não há hipótese, não.
Some of them together.
Well, this is going to scare you a little bit. I'm going to flip the slide, and don't gasp. So we're going to go through the schematic for the rest of the time.
O que é que eu vou dizer?
This is my best slide. Every time I ask the team, what's my best slide? Repeatedly, this was it. They say, don't do it, Jensen. Don't do it. I said, no. These seats are free for some of you.
Não sei o que é que diga.
So this is your price of admission.
But Jensen made it clear, if you don't like how DLSS 5 looks, and these are the real ones now, actually, then simply, you're wrong.
Well, first of all, they're completely wrong. The reason for that is because, as I explained very carefully, DLSS 5 fuses controllability of geometry and textures and everything
Ele a tentar explicar.
with generative AI.
When it's not busy AI generating dating profile pictures used to scam old people in other countries, DLSS 5 is busy creating yassified fan edits of soccer players midfield with full studio lighting and flash photography. Because now the game is being a photographer for GQ magazine instead, before which point it applies a moire effect to the shirt as an alien prepares to burst out of his chest while simultaneously slopifying an arm. Or, as one commenter said, quote, they somehow made the 15-year-old character look like the 38-year-old Zack Oyama, end quote. DLSS blasts the ever-loving shit out of the contrast, saturation, exposure, and color grading of scenes that were built with a particular feeling in mind, but now feel like a fucked up HDR video on an unsupported device, and in some cases, even appear to literally change the character. In the Requiem demo, in the first frame of the comparison, you can see that DLSS 5 has the appearance of giving Grace a broader, stronger jawline, while also giving her a nose job to lift the nose upward. Not to mention,
Não deixam passar nada.
up, more sharply defined curves on the lacrimal canal, and then curves on the upper lash line on the outside, all for a cost of only 2 RTX 5090s, cheaper than a trip to Korea or Turkey.
Só duas, 50-90.
To mention the eyeshadow and the eyeliner, they threw it in there for free. It's almost like someone said, hey, if we train AI on what's considered conventionally attractive in social media so that we can subconsciously manipulate people to extend their engagement time with the media by just a little bit longer for reasons they can't quite understand, with the long-term possibility of using millions of data points we've scraped for each person via a combination of their LLM usage from things like ChatGPT on accounts that they've connected to our services through data partnerships with companies like Meta, OpenAI, dating apps, and game studios, thereby opening the door in the future to leverage generative AI in games in a way that appeals to the individual data profile that we've built for the user playing the game.
Gamers Next Generation.
For more money through their weaknesses that we've algorithmically identified, and then they packaged it into step 1 and called it DLSS 5. And no, I did not speed that up in post. And yes, it is conspiracy brained. But then last time, we're gonna need a bigger hat.
Damn, vou pôr.
Venezuela would be a good source of oil for data center companies, and then the government said this.
Venezuela worked out really great, and we're taking out hundreds of millions of barrels of oil. Sort of my idea, like.
É, realmente estamos lixados.
And everybody thought I was kidding. They said, really, you can do that? How would you do that? I said, we'll get you fast permits, because, you know, the data centers and you people are so big, you're the biggest in the world, but they've developed a little bit of a bad public, they need some PR help.
Real baby Jordan. We're still power constrained.
So the conspiracy brain thing, I was just saying, got a good track record. Although DLSS 5 does modify the images, there are some things that it simply can't perfect. For example, this image, there's clearly no difference between the DLSS 5 version and the new rendering. So I don't know if DLSS 5 isn't working for that example, because as far as I'm concerned, they are literally indistinguishable. They look exactly the same. Native
Like são iguais.
than DLSS 5 in this one, so it just sometimes it doesn't even seem to work. We brought you this video with our brand new wireframe V2 mouse mat on store.gamersnexus.net, also accompanied by our new micro slop t-shirt that's on its way to our warehouse directly.
Vejam o vídeo completo.
Video's sloppiest AI yet. We also get to cover extremely relatable and down-to-earth quotes like this one.
You know, if you set up a factory, a plant, a DRAM plant, and I come in and say, you know what, go ahead and set up the DRAM plant because I'm gonna use it. That goes a long ways. You might as well take that to the bank, as many of them have. And so
As piadas deste gajo são muito secas.
scarce is fantastic for us.
You know, our mutual friend, Jensen, tonight you can talk to him.
Yep.
You know, clearly he needs a lot of memory for his Robin and the next generation product.
Between DLSS 5 reimagining the Altmer Hondatar as Joffrey Elfstein and fueling Epstein investment recipient Peter Thiel's co-founded company Palantir with technology that could be used in either war abroad or in surveillance against American citizens, Jensen Huang had a lot to talk about on stage at GTC. We'll start with the simplest, which is DLSS 5. DLSS 5 makes every single video game character look like it came from the same game, with the same shitty, I generated a dating profile picture to catfish people mid-journey make it photorealistic prompt. So if you've ever thought to yourself, I like video games, but I hate that they have character and feeling, and I'd instead like them to all look like the Facebook manifestation of dead internet theory, where as you're scrolling, you just pass one after another fake image with thousands of maybe actual people commenting on the images or just bots, who the fuck knows. If you want that in a video game, then NVIDIA has you covered. And all of this comes during a time when building a computer is no longer viable for normal, actual people who don't say things like this.
The fact that everything is scarce is fantastic for us.
The quiet part isn't the quiet part anymore. Scarcity is good for business. I mean, if you're not trying to get the stuff, if you're selling it, but it's good for business. With system memory prices now at 5 times what they were in September, and SSD prices at least doubling, and it's going up faster than that still, the slop is why normal end users can't afford RAM, or solid-state drives, or find GPUs. That's because the companies need to point all of that stuff at research and development for things like this.
Trustworthy AI.
But all of this is to try and make games look more photorealistic, except photorealism shouldn't be the standard of what looks good in a game. It can look good, but graphics and aesthetics are different things. While
E resta saber que se fazer aquilo, qual é o desempenho.
The effects as they were applied on still shots. The main exception to this that we could find was in the EA Sports FC demo, in which we found several extremely apparent examples of artifacting and ghosting. Limited frames to analyze means we have frame analysis, but we still noticed a few things. Here, the soccer ball artifacts heavily for several consecutive frames as the player kicks it.
A bola fica completamente alienada.
From American Dad, or if you prefer, Fivehead from Twitch. As the soccer ball enters the goal, it loses a spot in the net, bifurcates into 2 reality distortion balls momentarily, and then briefly vanishes before falling out of the net. We guess the artist's original vision for this was holodeck soccer. When the player runs off to celebrate, DLSS cuts off part of the player's left arm. That's gotta be a red card or something. It produces major artifacts above the player's right arm, and overall just struggles with the character's outline. This doesn't look good for DLSS for a launch.
E são duas 50 a fazerem este trabalho.
Or maybe suggest that NVIDIA never fully addressed artifacting issues in previous DLSS versions. But either way, this certainly seems like why NVIDIA didn't really show any demos with movement, other than this one.
Pois,
don't have enough material to conduct a proper analysis. That being said, we don't think DLSS 5's first impressions here were promising. Interestingly, NVIDIA noted temporal consistency as another one of DLSS 5's key benefits, and the soccer ball was anything but temporally consistent. But the backlash was so enormous, and somehow for the out-of-touch AI boosters was so unexpected, that they had to jump in to help NVIDIA with damage control, even though, like, the entire internet was mad at this one. I saw one guy, who I don't even remember who it was, who was like, don't listen to the influencers and the media who are telling you what to think. And you look at it, it's like, the media hasn't said anything yet. The media's gonna be like a day late to this. This is all the internet. Like, this is, for better or for worse, this is like, the entire internet decided, fuck this thing. But we also have things to say, so, a little bit of a... Anyway, some people jumped in to help NVIDIA with the...
Esses gajos não perdem tempo.
Gun pointed to the head of the adoring fan, tweeted to say, quote, appreciate your excitement and analysis of the new DLSS 5 lighting here, end quote. I'll tell you how you know it was written by PR. There's no subject of the sentence. There's no I or we. Appreciate.
Isto foi para a frente.
This is a very early look.
Há muita gente que vai perder trabalho.
The lighting and final effects to look the way we think works best for each game.
E nós vamos ficar piores servidos. Esse é que é o problema.
Optional for players. That line sounds familiar, like marching orders that were handed out.
A NVIDIA não consegue fazer os próprios drivers.
Game developers have full, detailed artistic control over DLSS 5's effects to ensure they maintain their game's unique aesthetic, per NVIDIA underneath its video. Their quote continues, the SDK includes things like intensity, color grading, and masking off places where the effects shouldn't be applied. It's not a filter. DLSS 5 inputs the game's color and motion vectors from each frame into the model, anchoring the output in the source 3D content, end quote. This is a good response. NVIDIA's trying to get ahead of what the internet was saying. People were twisting it and saying it looked like a 2019 Instagram filter, and those people were clearly wrong. So this should solve it. Let's see how the internet reacted. I'm sure NVIDIA got the reaction they were expecting. With all that AI that they have, they probably ran a predictive model and just, okay, all right, maybe they could have worded it a little better, or just like not made this. But anyway, some of the comments had great feedback for NVIDIA, such as, quote, Rams didn't die for this. No way this isn't an April Fool's.
Isto é a malta
AI-generated image.
a picar a NVIDIA.
Slop tracing, gotta say that's my favorite one. This was supposed to be an upscaler. How the fuck did it become this? We went from frame gen to frame hallucination, so now we measure GPU performance in paraslops, probably my second favorite. Looks like it completely changes what the devs originally designed, beyond weird. And, quote, Grace's face looks like those ads on the hub.
It's going to pound on memory really hard. It's going to be pounding on the storage system really, really hard.
Jesus fuck. Once again, you guys are brutal. Remind me not to fuck with the comments.
Yeah.
But also, I completely agree with this, and I'm happy that NVIDIA's got plenty of feedback to pull from so they know it's not just a random lunatic yelling at clouds and Palantir for the 67th time this month. That would be me, by the way, but also everybody else. But there's good news. The game development community says that all of us are wrong.
Well, first of all, they're completely wrong.
That's right. All those thousands of comments and people who didn't like it and their opinions about...
Deixar-me lembrar como desenvolvedor, diretor, que disse que os jogadores não percebem nada.
What the game development community had to say, because you're not allowed to have an opinion if you don't make games. An Epic dev wrote, quote, all you guys roasting DLSS 5 like it doesn't look better, is distracting from art direction, are absolutely insane. The light and shading improvements are bonkers, end quote. He unironically tweeted, we assume about this 16th century Japan village with ultra-reflective power wash solar roofs. He continued, quote, are you so ignorant as to not recognize what that will enable for marginalized creators? Yes, I get it. The transition that it will cause in the economy will be painful for some people, just like it was painful when the internet destroyed the mail order business, or just like when it was painful when candle makers were put out of business by Edison. It's kind of wordy, let me just shorten that form a bit. In other words,
some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
But guy who supports marginalized creators and also works for Epic Games has a point. DLSS 5's shading and lighting are bonkers. They're fantastic. They bring Oblivion Remastered right back where Oblivion came from. 2006. In this clip of Oblivion, you can see the scene get blasted with an indiscriminate floodlight that feels about the same as some HDR fuckery, or as if the brightness and saturation are both set to fuck your eyes on the monitor. Or in this flicker fest of the game where Hantatar Elfstein looks like he's glitching out of the Matrix while he walks towards the player, we can see maybe why NVIDIA didn't show off more scenes where there was actual movement. All right, enough of that for now. We'll come back to more discussion on sort of the image quality from the initial demos. There is theoretically some actual technology here, so we'll talk about that as well. Jensen Huang went on stage to describe how DLSS 5 is supposed to work.
Now, what did we do? We fused controllable 3D graphics, the ground truth of virtual worlds, the structured data. Remember this word, the structured data of virtual worlds.
Este gajo está completamente passado.
combine 3D graphics, structured data, with generative AI, probabilistic computing. One of them is completely predictive, the other one probabilistic, yet highly realistic. We combine these two ideas, controlled through structured data, controlled perfectly, and yet generating at the same time. And as a result, the content is beautiful, amazing, as well.
Claro. Tem que ser o neto a avó acabar o neto, não é?
For graphics, end quote. In other words, like a jump scare for owning computer hardware.
They say, don't do it, Jensen, don't do it. I wonder if this can play Crisis. Only game.
Essas anedotas deles.
Rendering model that takes the game's color and motion vectors as input for each frame, then infuses the scene with photoreal lighting and materials that are anchored to the source 3D content and temporarily consistent from frame to frame, end quote. NVIDIA's subsequent postings have tried to emphasize their statements that this deals only in color and motion, but users online have called this into question by pointing out examples that appear to have had deeper changes. And as we said earlier, Jensen Huang's newest comment even says stuff about geometry, which seemingly came out of nowhere. They didn't say that in this comment. Unfortunately, NVIDIA's obsession with photoreality also, we think, sets a misguided goalpost, as if photoreality is the ultimate in game graphics and aesthetics. The NVIDIA site continues, quote, the AI model is trained end-to-end to understand complex scene semantics, such as characters...
Eu acho que o pior foi o que eles vieram dizer.
Like frontlit, backlit, or overcast.
Iam ficar caladinhos.
DLSS5 then uses its deep understanding to generate visually precise images that handle complex elements such as subsurface scattering on skin, the delicate sheen of fabric and light material interactions on hair, all while retaining the structure and semantics of the original scene, end quote. Now, we already know that NVIDIA's images are nothing close to, quote, visually precise, end quote, so the marketing language here is disconnected from reality. We did notice subsurface scattering in some images, so at least that much is true. As for the so-called, quote, delicate sheen of fabric and interactions on hair, end quote, what we saw in most of the examples isn't something we'd describe as delicate sheen. DLSS5 lights these scenes up like a truck driver using his aftermarket lights to x-ray you from across the intersection. Based on our understanding, DLSS5 is still a work in progress and will require some significant optimization leading up to its planned fall 2026 release. In a forum post, NVIDIA clarified that the DLSS5 demo at GTC needed two 5090s to run, stating, quote, the DLSS5 early preview demo shown at GTC is run on two GeForce RTX 5090s. One RTX 5090 is dedicated to rendering the game, while the other is dedicated for running the DLSS5 model. DLSS5 will be optimized to run on a single GPU for release, end quote. Critically, they do not say what kind of GPU, just that it will work on a single GPU. We also think it's ironic, or fitting maybe, that Jensen described DLSS5 as...
We call it neural rendering, the fusion of 3D graphics and artificial intelligence.
When, in reality, NVIDIA had to literally separate them into 3D graphics and so-called artificial intelligence onto two physically separate 5090s. Now, hanging around his CEO buddies, Jensen must have forgotten that most gamers don't have an extra 5090 that they forgot in their other leather jacket pocket.
I actually want to start out talking a little bit about...
All of my CEO friends, they all have the most.
NVIDIA might claim that it wants to get this...
Isto é uma anedota atrás da anedota.
It perform well enough to even run outside of a basically fixed frame situation with the two 5090s, and we do think that this is likely going to be a challenge for them to get optimized. We're also really curious about the VRAM requirements for something like this. The company was also unable to share any details on the memory and performance impact, or even which GPUs will support DLSS5, instead stating, quote, DLSS5 at GTC is an early preview, and the model is still being optimized. We'll share these details closer to release in fall 2026, end quote. And, quote, minimum GPU specifications are pending model optimizations and will be provided closer to release, end quote. Despite the model still requiring optimization, NVIDIA lists at least 15 games that it says, quote, will support DLSS5 at launch, end quote, including Resident Evil Requiem, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, and Starfield, to name a few of the even fewer. NVIDIA also claims, quote, DLSS5 will be supported by the industry's biggest publishers and game developers, including Bethesda, Capcom, Hotta Studio, NetEase, NCSoft, S-Game, Tencent, Ubisoft, and Warner Bros. Games, end quote. The company goes on to point out what it considers DLSS5's key benefits, highlighting what it says is cinematic lighting and material depth, and saying DLSS5, quote, reconstructs complex effects like rim lighting, subsurface scattering for realistic skin, and contact shadows with high fidelity, end quote. And that it, quote, enhances physically based rendering properties.
Não adianta nada.
They don't match the things that are doing exactly what they say. Nothing more. Most suspicions of defensive writing are verified when the company reiterates.
Eles a tentar dar volta à questão. Vejam aqui o vídeo do Gamers Nexus. Pá, temos que dar também contributo a eles. É aquilo que eu disse. Eu acho que a NVIDIA tem outras coisas para se preocupar. Especialmente, por exemplo, a malta que tem na série 5000, os últimos drivers que saíram Eu só mostrei alguns porque eles vieram tão maus, ok? Tão maus que nem devíamos ser publicados. Aliás, um dos próprios vídeos, a própria Nvidia tirou ao fim de uma manhã, ok? Colocou e retirou. E depois deu o alerta a dizer, afinal, tão horríveis que estavam, ok? Agora, de repente vem com isto do DLSS, que ainda por cima está mal feito, ainda por cima usa tecnologias que nós nem sequer podemos usar. Já não falo de termos duas 5090. Não, nós, comuns mortais, não podemos ter duas gráficas em SLI no nosso sistema, que os drivers não nos permitem, ok? Para quem não sabe, antigamente permitiam até pôr 4 gráficas, ok? Seja gráficas da AMD, sejam gráficas da Nvidia. Há muito tempo que as duas marcas já deixaram de permitir isso. Agora, de repente, a Nvidia tira aquilo da cartola. Estamos com duas gráficas topo de gama a fazer isso. Ok? Maravilha, toda a gente vai poder fazer isso. Depois, quando vamos a ver, aquilo está horrível. Ok? E depois, para tentarem explicar, ainda vem o próprio CEO dizer, não, nós não percebemos, nós gamers não percebemos nada. Não sei se vocês estão recordados de um diretor que depois foi com os porcos, ok? Neste caso do anterior Battlefield, quando a gente reclamou, ele veio dizer, não, vocês não percebem nada disso. Ele foi despedido, ok? Isto é triste. A Nvidia começou pelos gamers. E agora aquilo que ele tem vindo a dizer, aliás, já há muito tempo ele disse numa última apresentação, que a Nvidia não estava a desenvolver, já não estava vocacionada para gamers. Foi ele próprio que disse. Ok? Depois manda aquelas bocas todas, como há bocado disse, será que isto vai correr o Crysis, não é? Só os gamers é que percebem. E depois vem dizer esta palhaçada, que os gamers não entendem nada. Estão a perceber a ideia deste gajo? Está completamente alucinado, o homem. Ok? Tu queres faturar os teus bilhões? Faturas, mas vais faturar com outros gajos, meu. Não venhas aqui a usar nada. Eu digo-te uma coisa, eu espero que o mundo não dê muitas voltas. Ok? Outra coisa que eu já disse aqui há uns tempos atrás, acho que já é tempo, não sei o que é que os Estados, neste caso nós da Europa, ainda estão a pensar fazer, e o tempo que vão demorar para começar a cair em cima do sistema de inteligência artificial, que já ficou provado agora, ainda há uns dias atrás. O próprio chat GPT, Jesus, eu já mostrei, eu já fiz 3 correções ao chat GPT, 2 delas consegui filmar, porque na altura não me lembrava de fazer isso, mas depois comecei a fazer, e estão aí no meu canal. Ok? A inteligência artificial gastam bilhões naquilo e nós nem a podemos corrigir. E depois, a fuga dos dados, e que estas empresas, aliás, já houve até tribunais nos Estados Unidos que deram um tiro nos pés, que é assim, se tu acederes a uma carrada de livros e usares esses livros, tu vais cair sobre a alçada dos direitos de autores. A inteligência artificial não tem esse problema. Porquê? Porque alguém permitiu fazer isso. Acho mal. Ok? Portanto, acho que é tempo de começarem a fazer isso. Não é? Criarem leis, coisas que têm que fazer. Nos Estados Unidos, por exemplo, já houve um caso numa polícia que estava a usar um sistema de identificação e inteligência artificial dos gajos, mandou prender uma pessoa e afinal a pessoa era completamente inocente e deu um bricacho, não, um chamado lawsuit lá, é uma punição, a pessoa leva neste caso o governo, aos tribunais. Enfim, malta, era mais uma curiosidade aqui, só para vermos como é que nós estamos. Portanto, para o nosso CEO, como quem diz, né? Para o nosso amigo Jensen, nós gamers não percebemos nada de jogos, ok? Portanto, pensem nisso e agradeçam a quem tem que agradecer, tá bom? Muito obrigado, continuação e até uma próxima.